It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and action.
Hey, what's up, everybody? There's your good friend, Marc Williams.
And I'm Cathey Armillas. Welcome to It's About to Go Down. We've got our good friend, Jimbo Clark, with us. I met Jimbo. One of my first times I met Jimbo was on a private island in Indonesia. Crazy, right? We'll talk about that later. But Jimbo is one of the most creative people that I know. When I met him, not only did I learn about his creativeness, but as a speaker and facilitator and trainer and just funny guy, top of the line. Jimbo has this idea because he has been putting boxes on people's heads for years and years. And you can see some of his boxes behind him. But Jimbo has this idea that he has been told over and over should be a TED Talk. Change your box, change your world. So welcome, Jimbo Clark. And please tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, thank you so much. I can't say how happy I am here to be here with you guys. I watch your channel and I think you guys are doing great stuff. And you've helped me change my box a little bit. And this is one of my boxes right here. This all started back in 2009, just at the end of the financial crisis. I had a client that said, hey, everybody wants to go back to the way things were instead of forward to the way things need to be. Can you help us do a training on thinking out of the box? And like every good consultant, I said, that's what I do best. And then I was at home and I was thinking, shoot, what is the box? And on the ground, not far from my foot, there was an empty box. And so I stuck this box on my head and I said, okay, so this is thinking in the box. And this is thinking out of the box, in the box, out of the box. I thought, oh, we will put boxes upon their heads and it'll be fabulous. And so I did. I got some cardboard, I got some box cutters, I got some tape, and we went in and had them build boxes and stick boxes on the head of 20 executives. And the program went well, but it photographed excellently. And so it's one of those times, I'm sure you guys have the same experience where there's a nugget, there's like a piece of sand inside the oyster that really wants to become a pearl, but it just won't come out. And that's what happened with the box. It was cumbersome. It was, you got to walk around with cardboard and box cutters and people are cutting pants and, oh dear. So I went on an iterative journey of trying to tease out when people say think out of the box, what do they really mean? And how can we get people to experience the in the box, out of the box shift in mind, that aha moment, without needing to take them to the jungle or to a beach or, with letting them do that internally instead of taking them to an external place. And so we started using boxes on people's heads to help them think out of it. And now more than 35,000 people have had their brains unboxed.
I knew the number was big and large, but I didn't know what it was. So when I was introducing you, I was like, oh, I think it's in the over 10,000.
Yeah. And we've got 200 people. It's been delivered in over 30 countries in more than 20 languages. We've got more than 200 people that we've certified up around the world to help people change their outer world by making adjustments to their inner world.
See, there's the big idea, right, Marc?
I'm speechless. Yes.
Wow, to get Marc Williams to be speechless, Jimbo, that's a lot.
Look at that. I got goosebumps, Marc. Yeah, just hearing you say that, I got goosebumps. I won't show you the ones on my leg, but yeah. Yeah.
Actually, can you, and I don't know if you remember, you probably said it 1,001 times. that last phrase that you just said, I was so enamored by it that I didn't even get a chance to write it down.
You mean about that you want to, let's put it this way. Let me talk around it, and maybe it'll emerge again, right? The world's a tough place for us humans. And the box really started as a coping strategy for living in an organization. So my first people I was working with are multinationals trying to survive. But since then, it's hard not to want to change the world. Or maybe I should say it this way. It's hard to not want the world to be changed. Right? And as we watch the news and as we look at our feeds and as we live our life, it is overwhelming. And from an overwhelmed position, we fall back into protection as opposed to connection. And so we think in our box about, how do I stay safe and how do I succeed? And so thinking about changing the world is overwhelming. But if there was a way that you could change your world, your inner world, and by changing your inner world, you could take new behaviors and new actions that would impact your world around you. You don't have to change the world. The world with a capital T is way too big. But can you change your world? And so the whole idea is that if I can make changes to my inner thinking, those changes show up as new behaviors, new ways of being, new ways of talking, new impact on others. And that changes the world around me. So we say, change your box, change your world, as a way of, if you can change your mindset, if you can change your way of understanding and reacting to the world, then you can make a difference to your world. And that's all you got to do.
Jimbo, did I hear you clearly when you said that this started off as like a 2 to 3 hour like training?
Yeah, well, it started off in the corporate world here. I live in Taiwan, by the way, and so my clients traditionally have been Hong Kong, China, Singapore, Taiwan, this neck of the world. And it started out as a part of corporate training for change management and strategic thinking and creative thinking. And it's still, don't get me wrong, it's still all about that. And this week, 180 people in one of the big accounting firms are going to go from manager to partner. And as a part of that transition, they're going to have a box experience to get them to think about what's the thinking that made you a successful manager, and how do you change that thinking to be a successful partner? Because if you can change your box, you change your world, right? So
capital W.
Yeah.
Capital Y, no, capital Y, sorry.
Capital Y, yeah. It's all capital W from here on out.
Yeah.
It's all caps. We're going to all cap the world.
It. Oh, you're. No, I love it though. The reason I clung back onto that statement though was because you said like the world, capital W, like the world. Yeah. The world is really big, but then I was like, but your world, that's what really makes this a unique idea. And if you really think about it, Mark, how many people really focus on like, oh, if they don't like something, do they really start with themselves, or do they just start complaining about what they don't like about what's out there? Some people do. But I wouldn't say everybody. Not by any stretch. And so,
can I share a story?
Yeah.
Just recently, I was doing a conference on change. Right, it's all about change. And so someone came up to me and he says, "Well, what do you do if people don't want to change?" And my question to that person was, "Are you people?"
I like that.
Because what you're saying in that question is, I don't want to change. I want other people to change.
But other people won't change.
Right? But they won't change. And so if I start from the position that I am people, and if I want people to change, I start by changing me. And if I don't get the change I want in my world, guess what I get to do? Change myself some more.
Yeah. Yeah. Super good.
I got some things cooking up in my head, Cathey, but I want you to go first.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, one of the things, first of all, I always love, and Jimbo, you have great ideas. I can have a 5-minute conversation with you, and I know we're going to be like, ideas. Yeah. Ooh, ideas. So many ideas. And both of you and I kind of have the same problem sometimes, where we'll have a lot of ideas, but really being able to hone in on one. And here's the thing, I'll say it right out of the gate. You know, change your box, change your world. I think it's a great idea. And at level 1, it's really awesome. But I think we should quickly get down to like, let's use the backdrop of a TED Talk. Let's say you were going to give a TED Talk on it. Marc, how would we coach him to support that? Because level 1, it's a great idea. Sounds awesome. But how do we do it? What will motivate people to start with themselves? What will make people say, I'm people. I'm the people. I'm the people that need to change, right? Starting with me. It reminds me of the Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror, right? Yeah, it's like starting with the person in the mirror, starting with me. So what's level 2? What's level 3? Like what are we going to use to entice people to think it's a good idea? And then to actually, what does a good practice look like? I'm thinking in my head, Jimbo, in this TED Talk, that you're going to have a story of why you needed to change your box and how your world changed. Yeah. And what it's done for you, and then what you've seen it do for other people, like a story of what it's done for other people. And maybe some other supporting evidence, psychology, people are happier when they can control things. I don't know. I'm throwing out a bunch of things. People are happier when they feel like they can control things. This you can't control. You can't control capital W world, but you can control capital Y, your world. I don't know. Those are my thoughts, Marc.
I'm curious when you give that example of, are you people? Because I have also found that people want everybody else to change, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm good. I got all the answers.
I'm fine.
I think inside the box, outside the box, I created the box. I'm the box, right?
I'm the box.
What makes it so hard to think about you changing? What makes that so hard?
I've been working on my thinking for 59 years. And I'm alive. And I'm successful. So we say, what's the purpose of the box? Safety and success. So I always get people, raise your hand if you're in the audience. Okay, good. You're halfway done. You're safe. You're alive. You've made it this far. Okay. And so when I think about change, I think the response is, that's risky. That's going outside of what I know is going to keep me safe and what has proven to be successful for all my life. And there comes a kind of comfort and mojo in knowing that I at least understand the truth with a small t. And even better, if I think I got the truth with 2 capital T's. And if I've got the truth with 2 capital T's, why am I going to open up myself to another opinion? Why am I going to listen not to the words that you are saying, but to the human being that you are on the inside? If that might put my truth with 2 capital T's at risk. And so we say it's not that people don't want to change, it's that people don't want to be changed. And so change is a door that we have to open from the inside. And that's kind of our invocation to open up the box, you know? So would you like to change from the inside out? If you would, let's open this thing up and let's do some work on our inner thinking so that you can get more of what you really want while experiencing less pressure.
Do you ever get people who say, I don't want to change from the inside out?
No, I don't. But that's probably my box just filtering them out.
I can't hear anybody that doesn't want to.
Yeah. You know,
I can't even
I'll
see
be
them,
honest.
actually.
No, well, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the box is when you're looking through your filters, you know, you don't see everything. You only see the things that you can see.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. It's because we have a gradient that we go through. So it's not the first minute of an interaction where we say, hey, how would you like to change your worldview? No. But so the entry point into change is putting the box on your head. This is what I mean by that. It's I mean, like in America, Shark Week is huge, right? I mean, it's like now it's a thing, Shark Week.
The thing.
And people know more about sharks who have never put a snorkel and a mask on in an ocean.
Mm-hmm.
They've never gone from here to here and see that, you know, oh, it's blue and there's sunshine. Holy crap. what, you know, they've never done that. And so they know a lot about sharks and they've lost their fears of whatever. And so we say that, you know, putting the box on your head is like going scuba diving into your thoughts, as opposed to just talking about it.
Yeah. You're really
so what we do to make them be willing to change is we actually get them stick the box on your head and tell me what you feel.
Yeah, I love this image.
What are you experiencing right now with this box on your head? And we get them to go out and take pictures and talk to each other, do some simple activities. And then when we take the box off, we say, so with that box on your head, what did you experience? Oh man, I couldn't really see others. And I felt, you know, claustrophobic and, you know, I could only hear myself. I couldn't hear others talk. And then we just slow it down and say, okay, so when your brain's under pressure, who's the one person you can hear? Oh, myself. When your brain's under pressure, do you really see other people? No, I don't. So what we find is that the experiences of the box on head is really similar to my experiences under pressure. And so then the question becomes, do you experience these things in your real life? Do you ever only hear yourself? Do you separate yourself from friends, family, colleagues? Do you feel claustrophobic? Can we not breathe?
Yeah.
Next time that happens, wouldn't it be nice if you could do something else? So then when we ask them, what would you do if you could change this box? What would you do so that you could wear it? The first answer is, well, I'd open up the front. So we let people do that. Right? And then we ask them, okay, so with the front open, what do you experience? Oh, I can see other people and I can, you know, I feel a lot better. And I said, what else? Oh my God, they can see me. So now do I protect or do I connect? Am I showing the persona or am I showing the person?
Ooh.
And here's a nice little, this is a cute one that I got from another speaker, which was reframing intimacy to into me, you see. So that's how we handle that question mark, is that nobody starts saying, oh yeah, you know, I want to change my thinking, you know, but when they start to realize that the suffering that they might experience, or the separation, or the feelings of stuck, or the frustration, or the knowing that there's something out there that they don't know how to do, once they start to connect that with being in their box, then the willingness to make some changes to that thinking is just intuitive, here, and then we just have to make it metaphoric and meaningful here.
Cathey, a big part of why I asked that goes back to my point about the 2 to 3 hour training and what you asked about transitioning to a TED Talk, right? And as the mistress of TED Talk, that's my nickname for you now, the mistress of TED Talk.
I must have just got it promoted somehow. Nice, thank you.
In a case like this, do you figure out how to chisel down a 2 to 3 hour message into 17 minutes?
Oh yeah.
All right. Okay.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, or
I don't even know what your or is.
Yeah, I don't even know. So let's start there.
It's like a hell yeah. Because I don't, whatever your or was, I was like, no, you absolutely do. Yeah, no. It's a great question though, Mark, because I know where you're going because you're looking at some of the things he's doing and you're like, oh, that's deep. It takes a while to get somebody through some of the things that and I've been through Jimbo's box training before. I know exactly what goes on in the room. I know exactly the feelings of having a box on your head and going, feel like I can't turn, like I don't know what's going on. I think that the high level, that's why I was talking, what I really wanted to talk to you all about is what are the important pieces? And, there's already a lot of things that are being said. I love, one of the things that I would love Jimbo to give this TED Talk, and I would love everybody to have one of these boxes underneath their seat. And I would love for him to tell them to pull it out and put it on their head. And while they're putting it on their head like he always does, I would love for him to explain what it means, explain what the box is representing. And I think he can quickly tell people that we all have our own box, we all have our own filters, and I think you were very smart though, Mark, because the part that you're trying to get at is, I think, the golden nugget for your TED Talk. Well, it's that spot. It's like because you've ran it so many times, Jimbo, it's like, where is that magic transition spot where people go, I get it. I totally get it. Yeah. I get it. This is my box is here, right here. I can't take it off either. It just stays.
Well, there's about 7 or 8 of them, but there's a few pieces that I would say are essential.
Okay, let's talk about that. Yeah.
So the first essential piece is exactly what you're saying. I want to take them scuba diving. I don't want this to be Animal Planet, brain week, box week. Yeah. I want them to stick it on their head. I want them to hate it just a little bit. I want them to take it off. I want them to punch through and open up, and then I want them to stick that new box on their head and say, "Hey, this is all right." That's better. So that's much better. So the big payoff moment is going to come when they put the better box on their head and it's opened up. And then we just need to make sure that along the way, there is just enough metaphor and meaning so that it's not just like, oh, I got to have an open mind, because that's still too easy. So I'll share my favorite new one. This is actually a tool that I use at least once a day, if not twice a day. And it comes from so we talked about the front, which is the filters. It's kind of like our cognitive filters of how we understand and are understood. And, we can get that real quick. That's easy. And then we have the left and the right, and the left and the right kind of form a battery. I'll take this up. It forms a battery, and it's how we make decisions. Something energizes me and I say yes. So like, was it hard for me to get out of bed this morning to have this call? No, I'm energized. Mm-hmm. I got another call in about an hour, which I'm not quite as energized, and I'm hoping the guy doesn't show up. Okay. So we make,
I know, I was like, I hope he's not watching.
Yeah, Jennifer. So if you're watching this, so simply put, our unconscious brain makes decisions based on energy. And then we have to override that natural decision making with goals. So this represents goals, outcomes that we want. And so I may not be energized by it, but I still got to pay my taxes, so I will.
Right. Yeah.
So what I love to do with people is we talk about how we normally make decisions, but if we want to get better results in life, we're going to have to open up our mind to some new ideas. That's when people say think out of the box. That's what they mean. Let in some new ideas. And if we're going to let in new ideas, we got to let out old ideas. That makes sense, right? So then when we put this box on our head, we now have cross ventilation. Right? So new ideas coming out. And we equate this with the idea of dental floss, and that everyone's supposed to floss their teeth once or twice a day, but almost nobody does.
I do.
Yeah, I know you do. You're special. We could have a whole podcast on how you're special, says the guy with the box on his head. Okay, so what we talk about is mental floss. So if I've got an old thought stuck in my head like a piece of meat that I just can't get out of my teeth. And when I think that thought, I have an emotion and I need to floss that idea out to make space for the new. And when we talk about mental floss, people go, oh, that makes sense. And it's the emotions. It's all about, because the left and right, all about emotion. So something happens and I react negatively and I say, oh man, she treated me unfairly. Emotion. Okay, what happens if I just mentally floss that emotion out, that thought out? Oh, I feel like she treated me unfairly. I'm curious. What was going on in her mind? Let me open up with curiosity and authenticity. Let's create an intimate moment, some intimacy between her and I, where I can understand her inner thinking as opposed to just judging by the behaviors that I see on the outside of their box. Because I certainly don't want people to judge me by what's on the outside. I want them to judge me by what's on my inside. But I have a hard time doing that with others. So this idea of mental floss, and that's such an easy thing to get. And once you start to do it, because that's the easy one. The easy mental floss is when you have a negative. The hard mental floss is when you have a positive response for something isn't really helping.
Yeah.
We waste a lot of time on, I let 12-year-old Jimmy make all kinds of decisions in 59-year-old Jimbo's mind, right? And so, I'm still trying to get mommy and daddy's approval. I'm still trying to, and when it happens, I feel good. And maybe I need to floss out the need for others to say, oh, Jimbo, you're a genius. Maybe I got to let go of that to change my world. So that's one of them. So we've got the filters, we've got the mental floss. Those are two of the, and with those two, there's more, but with those two, we can take them from discomfort, disconnection to openness. And that we call it the better box. So in this better box, now I feel comfortable, I feel confident, I could juggle, and so I think the payoff is when they put that better box on their head and they realize, this is the payoff for vulnerability. Oh, this is the payoff for having a truly open mind. Oh, maybe I am willing to change my box a little bit to change my world.
The visuals are so strong and so good, Jimbo. One of the things that makes me think what would be really successful in a TED Talk is to run a specific story through one side of the box, through the box, and then outside of the box. And it probably should be yours, right? Something that you experienced, something very specific that you very much maybe had a hard opinion on over here, but once you kind of filtered it through your box, how you actually not only how you maybe changed your box, but how did it actually change your world a little bit? That, I think that would be really big supporting evidence. Because in theory, a lot of the things that you're saying, it's so metaphorically beautiful. Of course, like we are understanding that. I mean, even your like sound effects are great. Like we're like, okay, yeah, exactly. We get it. We totally get it. But to be able to kind of also experience something on one side and see it transform would be good.
There's,
You know, I gotta add to that.
please.
Your story would be very helpful. A moment, an everyday moment, I think would be even more helpful. Like when you said, you gave the example of like, if she treated me unfairly.
Yeah.
That's an everyday thing that now I think so many people on such a basic level can get it. Whether I'm at the restaurant and the waiter or the waitress was pissy, whether I ran into somebody on public transportation, the stranger, whether it was a fight with my mother or my wife or my child, and it requires that shift, right? So I think that everyday story would be really helpful right here to build upon what Cathey is saying.
Yeah, no, and thanks, Mark. And I think that's true because there's already so much content that any other story requires. Like, I mean, I have two stories that come to mind. One is, you know, I didn't want to do this I had no intention of starting a business that puts boxes on people's heads. I didn't choose to be in the printing, supply chain, shipping business. I thought I was a trainer, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of got dragged into this kicking and screaming, but that's a whole nother story that requires a lot of cognitive processing about who I am and how it happened. And then the other one that I've been thinking about is I just found out, and Cathey and I had the great conversation when we were in Portland recently. I just found out that I am an adult survivor of ADHD. I mean, I've had ADHD all my life, and I thought it was a kid's thing. You know, I thought kids had ADHD, you know, and then I had a penny drop moment in Seattle where for the next 3 days, I was like, oh my God, that's why she broke up with me. Oh my God, that's why I ride motorcycles for 3 hours by myself to think. Oh my God, that's why I created a model about being trapped inside my own thinking. Yeah. You know, and so this filter of, you know, me compensating for my brain is a whole nother kind of neural diversity and all of that. And how do we as adults, you know, come to grips with neural diversity in ourselves and others? That's a whole nother story. But I'm not competent. I mean, I have to do a ton of research, and you know, it's big. It's a big story, and I think what you just said, Mark, is actually really, I think it's really powerful. It's like, hey man, this shows up in all of us every single day.
I agree with that. I think you need to have both for a TED Talk. I don't think it's going to work without, and I love the ADHD one. I think you could have humor in there because you're able to self-deprecate like you always do very well. You know, you can talk about the things that, who made me? You could definitely figure out, what things you could talk about that would be funny. But in all seriousness, you felt trapped in your head. You know, there's things that you felt that you could talk about. And you could talk about how you had to change your mind, even into, you can even blend those two stories, how you had to change your mind, even into doing what's sitting on people's heads at the moment. I think it could be really powerful because in a TED Talk, one of the big questions you have to answer is, why are you the one to talk about this subject? And you can't do that with a small story. That's not small story stuff. Small story stuff is very good at showing, Mark, I love why you brought it up. Small story stuff is very good at showing somebody how they could use it. Boom, right now, today, everyday occurrence. Like somebody makes me upset. I open the door for somebody. They didn't even look at me, whatever. But big stuff that you're connected to in a TED Talk needs to come through too.
Agreed.
So
fantastic. Because you know why I think that's fantastic is because right now I'm sitting here sweating, not because of the aircon, but I'm sweating. It's like, oh my God, that's a pretty personal thing. And that's a hard thing to talk about. And then that's just a sign that's a good thing. I mean, you know, that's all of those the physiological response to scary, sweaty palms.
Yeah.
For me, like that's a sweat. I would call that a sweaty palm idea.
Sweating.
Yeah. That's just your body saying, okay, let's go. Let's go. It's about to go down.
It's about
to go down moment. And your body's giving you all this extra energy to say yes. And we mislabel that as nerves.
Yeah.
Anxiety. Right.
I love
and
that.
so,
Jimbo. I love that.
Oh yeah.
If your
Our body's
saying,
just giving us chemistry, right? It's just chemicals.
Tingles. Yeah.
Yeah. Body's giving you chemicals on an idea, and we call that discomfort. And so our box pulls us back and says, oh, I don't think that'll work. I don't think we have enough time. How can I do this, and this? It's only 17 minutes, And so this is what's going on in my brain. All these little, the red side of my box is going off. Oh, that's too complicated. And boy, that's really hard. And I've never done that before. Boy, what a great example of how our brain lies to us all the time.
Yeah.
To keep us safe.
Yeah. And how your brain tried to, even in this moment, tried to box you in. Cathey wants me to share my story.
Yeah. And this is a story I'm still figuring out. I mean, it's not like a lot of our stories. I think a lot of my stories are set pieces.
Yeah.
I've rehearsed them. They may sound very, they are very authentic, but because I've said it, many times, I can talk about personal things to an audience and feel comfortable with that because it's rehearsed. And this is definitely a topic that's not rehearsed, and I'm still figuring it out. And so, what a great chance for me to figure it out.
Yeah, and honestly, too, in this TED talk that you would give, you don't even need to have it completely figured out yet. That's not even. It's just you talking about this and, talking about the journey of where the box came from, why you were the person, why it came to, why did this box idea not come to somebody else? It came to you for a reason. So I love when people say, and Jimbo, you know this because you're an ideas guy, right? I love when people say, oh, such a simple idea. Anybody could have thought of that, but they didn't. Right? Like you hear people say that. I remember when Facebook first started and people were like, oh, that's what an easy, simple thing. But you didn't come up with it. You didn't bring that idea to fruition. So, I think it just would be this would be a really great piece of your story is the big why, Jimbo.
Thank you. And may I add this for a second? Sure. This might be a tangent, but I heard you talk about the stories that are easy for you to tell because they're rehearsed, and this one you haven't. And I wrote down 2 words. I think our best stories are not rehearsed; they're conversed.
Oh, nice.
Right. And what I mean by that is the way that stories come out naturally is through conversation. Right. And I always say one of the biggest disservices we do to ourselves as storytellers and as speakers and just as people in general is we wait to tell the story until we're on the stage or until we're in front of the room. But the magic of these stories, right, even the history of storytelling is that we're telling them all the time. They're not just meant for the stage, they're meant for conversation. So I always find that to be a really good tidbit that if you really want to get these stories down, don't save them for the stage.
Oh, yeah.
Start sharing them in conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, conversed instead of rehearsed. And in our box, what we say is that the outside of the box is how I connect and protect. So I put parts of me on the outside that enhance connection while creating a level of protection. And, for me, I live in Taiwan, and I would go back to Seattle when I first came back, and I'd want to talk about my life in Taiwan. And I'd say, oh yeah, I live in Taiwan, and it's really great. And people would say, oh man, I love that. Do you live in Bangkok? Thai food is so good. And I realized there was no connection available, because the one thing you don't want when you're talking to someone, say, oh no, not Bangkok. I live in Taipei, and now I've just corrected them. Yeah. And there's this that happens. And so then I start just talking about living in Asia. And it's because through conversation, you find out where do people connect and where do they not. And that's I think that's the interplay between what you're saying, which is it's not about rehearsing, it's about conversing, and through conversing you see lights go off and you see connection created, and so you adjust it. And if you were a stand-up, you'd be looking for the laugh, right? And so you're looking for those little laugh moments that are happening throughout the story. And I think storytellers and humans, we're looking for connection.
And you're not trying, I love this Jimbo thing of like, you don't want to have to shut it down somewhere. You don't want to shut down valve,
No.
You don't want there to be something in that story that shuts it down. That makes people feel dumb or disconnected or not. Yeah, I get that. That was a really good example.
And can I share how that shows up?
I
can keep doing this all day long.
Half the show is like Jimbo with a box on his head.
So when I tell stories, or anyone tells a story, what they're doing is they're opening up a part of themselves to the others. So it's beyond just my behavior, and it's beyond my brand. So this kind of outer branding. So I'm opening up. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go from the inside of my thinking through my filters and through your filters. So I use humor. I use self-depreciating humor myself. That's my little go-to move to get people to open up. Facts, figures, all these kinds of things. And as it goes in, I want to tickle the right side and not trigger the left side. Because if I say something, I get into your brain a little bit, and then I say something that triggers this negative response.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, he's woke, or oh, she's that, or oh. And once I trigger this response, it's like there's an alarm bell that goes off. It goes whoop, 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 and they just put the filters down and say, bounce off, baby.
And then another layer comes down and shuts it down. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then in the end, what you got to do is you got to connect to the heart. So we haven't talked about this panel here, which is the back of the box, where this is the we call it a puzzling situation. It's the success image the target that I'm looking for, that I care about, which is puzzling, conflicting. And so different pieces of the puzzle. And I think in COVID, a lot of people realized they were doing a puzzle with one piece. How do I make enough money, or how do I get a promotion? Because if you try to have the promotion and money and family and health and travel and time with my aging parents and you think, I can't do that. And what we would say is you've got to ask for more to give your mind a reason to open up. And so in a good story or in a good TED Talk, this is that, what is it inside of me that I aspire to, or that I might be inspired to aspire to? What is the future that I care about? Right.
What connects to your heart?
Yeah. And it has to be future oriented as opposed to pain relief today. So it's not just about relieving the pain today, because that's a survival technique. We put up with a lot of, can we say shit on this program? We can't. Okay.
Yeah,
we put up with a lot of shit. We put up with a lot of shit in the moment to get to a better outcome. But nobody's looking for a shitty outcome. Yeah. Right. And so that's the other key piece, and that's that change your world part, which is, what do you really want in your world? What is the world you want to co-create with others? Yeah. Because we hedge, our box helps us hedge our future. And what I mean by hedge is we don't make the big dreams, because we dream from inside the box. We make goals from inside the box. You ask any employee, okay, it's end of the year, you've got to do your annual targets, your annual goals. Nobody sits down and really thinks about it. They say, well, what's the minimum? 5% increase? Okay, they'll say 5% increase. Let me do the math on 5%. because that's what the boss is going to say yes to. If I say 10% and I make it, then the boss is going to expect 10% next year.
Yeah.
Now, why would I do that to so we're taught to hedge our future by thinking about our future while we're inside our box.
Ooh.
And the one time that you want to go outside of your box for sure is when you're thinking about the future.
Mm-hmm.
And we use the metaphor of the genie. You know, it's like the inside this box is a genie, and the genie is my inner genius. Oh, clever.
Oh.
And so the genie cannot answer the wish from inside the bottle. You don't go into the genie's bottle and make your wish, right? The genie comes out of the bottle, and you're not asking, oh, genie, could you please help me be more financially, responsible? Right? You're not asking for process. You're not asking, for enablers. You're asking for outcomes.
Yep.
And so that's where the change your world part comes in. And is how do we dare ask for a world is better than we can conceive of?
And expect other people to be all the players in that change.
Yeah. I just saw Greta Thunberg. I just saw this great quote from her. It's not our job to tell you how to do it. It's our charge to demand that you figure it out.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think for us, it's the same thing. If I am only willing to imagine a future that I know I can get, then that's all I'm going to get.
Yeah.
But if I'm willing, and once we get people to see, hey, we can learn, we can change, we can open with this better box. What could you do in your world?
So that to me, Jimbo, that also, if I'm shortcutting a lot of the things that you're doing, that's the ending of your talk.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
That's like, what are the things that, how would your world look differently if you were future casting your world? If you were outside of your box doing it, what would that look like? Yeah. And how can we create a world? How can we create a better world for ourselves? Not trying to wait around for everybody else to change the things that we don't personally like.
Right.
I feel
and how do we do that for my world as opposed to the world? The world. Yeah. Because that gets really scary when you say, what do you want? Well, I want world peace. I would like, into this and the beginning of this, all these things. And I look at that, and no matter how creative I am, I can't do that. So then the question is, what do you want for your world? Yeah. And be selfish. Because if I want my children to be safe, and if I want if I want myself to have some money left over at the end of each month, if I want to be able to, buy groceries and not worry about the price, if this is what I want for my world, guess what? I'm going to start building a better, the world. Yeah. Right. So, but it's all about we got to start with ourselves. And I think that's where another place where people really have a hard time is when it comes to, we say ask for more. It's kind of our little anchor that we use now. Ask for more sounds like being selfish, but it really, it's the refusal to play small.
Yeah.
It's the refusal to play inside the box.
Yeah. That's right, Mark.
Yeah. I got to tell you, Jimbo, and I don't know if we have enough time for this process. But I'm thinking about the point made earlier that Cathey brought up about, we got to hear your story. Like, we got to get a chapter from your book. And I heard that was a sticking point, right? And what I'm curious about ultimately, and maybe there's a homework assignment from the teacher, right? What does that process for you look like? Because right now, telling that unique story that Cathey was talking about is really trapped inside your own thinking.
Yeah.
Right. And what I'm curious about is, what does that process look like from it trapped inside your head to it coming out? And the reason why I asked that is because early on you said the question that we like to ask is, how can we get people to experience the shift between being in the box and outside the box? And the reason why that stuck with me is because sometimes we think of it as two extremes.
Yeah.
It's about inside the box, it's about outside the box. What I'm gravitating towards is the process. And you used that word earlier too. The process and the shift. Like, how do I experience that? How do I experience that in these big, unique moments that Cathey's talking about? How do I experience that in these everyday small moments that I was talking about?
Yeah.
Right? So that shift, that process is probably more powerful than the end product.
Yeah. Yeah. I can tell you, I mean, I could start with my fears or my concerns about that, if that's a helpful place to start.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, so I've been practicing. I've been conversing. I got really lucky. A year ago, I was in Amsterdam and met a COVID friend, and he started by saying, like, within 5 minutes of meeting him, he said, I just want you to know I've recently been diagnosed with ADHD and on the autistic spectrum. So if I make you feel uncomfortable, just realize I'm much more uncomfortable than you are. And that's how he started, you know, that was like the first 5 minutes, just like, hey, let's get to know me. Here you go. This is what you're dealing with today. Welcome to my world. And it was actually through that conversation that I started saying, well, gee, yeah, that's like, sounds like me. Oh yeah. And so I started doing the research around that. And I was still trapped in this is a kid's thing, and this is not an adult's thing, and this isn't me. And it was when I was thinking about, like, I always make a joke. I mean, jokes have so much truth in them. You know, 2 jokes I've always made. Oh yeah, I had ADHD as a child, but I was never diagnosed. The other one is there's a reason why I created a product about being trapped inside your own thinking. And nobody else is going to do this. Nobody else is going to take the initial thought of, hey, no one else is going to obsess obsessed about
Truth
this
right there.
I mean that's the ADHD. I have been so obsessed. I can show you. I've got so many different versions. I got obsessed with this. And the story has been, my obsession is because this is my way of helping to change the world. But guess what? This is my therapy on how I'm changing my world.
Yeah. Your experience.
And guess what's happening now? When I go to America, in fact, and when I'm back in February, we're going to have a box conference on how the box can be used in mental health, because mental health is not a thing in Asia as a defined thing. But in America, I was just in Seattle at Learnapalooza, and I had 3 different people come up after me and says, do people use this in mental health? Do people use this in counseling? Now I've got a guy in Los Angeles that's using with family of autistic children and autistic children. And so I'm coming to the realization that in the early days, we would say the box is the promise of the under the table promise of the box is, wouldn't it be nice if you could get more of what you really want while experiencing less pressure? And it was like a coping mechanism to living in the corporate world. And now my own personal rephrase of this is, wouldn't it be nice if you could change your world while experiencing more freedom, more peace, more openness, more connection, more love, all of that. All of that. But all of that requires that opening up to other people and letting go of the emotional trigger. Yep. And so for me, I guess where I get a little worried about this is that when I start talking about it, it comes out like an avalanche of thoughts, and of stories, and it's like it's so unparsed. It's just like I would bring it up because something would happen and I would say, oh my God, that's why I had to do that. That's why I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes around me right now. That's why my brain does all of this, is because we're all neural divergent, and my neural divergence just does this to me. Yeah.
Well, I would say don't worry about you processing it in front of others. Process it, in conversations like this.
Yeah.
So that you can figure out all of the juicy parts to then put on to the stage, and that's why I want to connect this back to something else that Cathey said earlier. And we were talking about comedians and everything like that. For you to take this 2 to 3 hour amazing idea and chisel it down to 17 minutes. So much of it is around what Cathey was saying, thinking about what that 2 hour experience has been and where have been the parts where you've gotten those critical, I won't call them big, those critical reactions, right? It's the same thing with the comedian. They laughed here, I got to get that into the special, right?
Yeah.
Right?
There's
Cathey,
one more.
Genius.
There's one more, like the critical thing. So great question. And one of the ways that I talk about the box in less than 17 minutes is when I'm on an expo floor introducing it to people, and I only got 4 or 5 minutes, right? And what I always do is I'll start by saying, is it okay if you put a box on your head? Because I want them to experience that stuck in. And then as I talk to them about what's going on, I just have them, oh yeah, just punch that out while I'm doing this. Yeah. And we're talking about this, just go ahead and punch that out. Then I have them put it on their head.
Yeah.
But then there's the closing. So in our box so the outside represents my public self. It's my behaviors. It's the part of me that you see. And then and our closing for the box is predicting the future. And so we ask the question, if you change your inner world, how will that change your outer world? What's the change? Change your box, change your world. And we go through 4 questions. And the first question is, if you make the changes on the inside, what new things will people hear you say? Because, action planning is like New Year's resolutions. It's all like, I'm at the height of the moment. I was, oh yeah, I'm going to do all this. Yeah, right. Good luck with that. But you can imagine new things you'll say. And I want it to be things people will hear because it's a behavior, not an intention. Second one is what new things will people, did I say hear you say?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the other one is, what new things will people see you do? So now what are you going to do? What are people going to see you do? It creates a really, really different response. The third one is, what new feedback will you receive from others? And the fourth one, and this is where I get on the sales floor in a conference, I can get what I call the side tier. The side tier where the eyes kind of just get a little glossy, but they don't cry.
Yeah.
The side tier comes from when I look at them in the eye and I say, and if you really made those changes on the inside, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you look in your eyes in the mirror, how would you feel differently about the person that you see?
Love that.
And that's how we close every box program. And then we have people can choose out of those 4, what do they want to share? And so, some people go to B1 and they say, oh yeah, I'll come into the office smiling more, and I'll leave work on time, and you'll hear me say yes, and my team will say, you're great, thank you, boss. And then so I look in the mirror, I'll say, I love you, thank you. And we get about 40-50% are mirrors, like the vast majority of people at the end of the process will talk about that. And So this is that change your world piece. The change your world piece is not about good intentions. And the change your world piece is not about, grandiose, strategic planning. The change your world piece is doing something different, having a different impact on others and having a different impact on yourself. And that's the change your world piece. So that's you answering your question, Cathey. That's the landing point.
Yeah.
And so that it's just,
Oh, the last question is like,
oh yeah,
mic
oh
drop.
Yeah.
Like, how would you feel different with the person that you're looking at in the mirror?
Mic
Like,
drop, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Well, that might be a great landing point for this conversation, and which is really a disappointment, because I love to have this should be like a special. This should be like that cliffhanger episode, at the end of those TV series when it was like a 2-hour episode.
Yeah, tune in next week for part 2.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Jimbo, speaking of different,
Mm.
since we started this conversation about an hour ago, what's different? What's new for you? What's come outside of your box?
Well, I think obviously the whole idea of intertwining an everyday relatable story. Someone cut me off. There's just that the thing that happens to all of us is a good one, and connecting this to my own understanding of my neurodiversity and how I have become more willing to look myself in the eye and say, you're okay just the way you are. And, and accepting the fact that, only my unique brand of neural divergence would ever follow through on 14 years of putting boxes on people's heads, and would just be so obsessed with it, because I know that there's, how do I put it? We all have ideas, and Cathey and I are idea people. We know we got a million ideas. I refuse to fall in love with ideas, because I think there's always another good idea.
Right.
But there are very, very few ideas that I have where other people tell me, this is great. This is a good idea. You need to do this. And so I think intertwining the kind of my neural divergent story through some simply through making this thing. And even today, when I was just throwing all these boxes at you, I was like, oh my God, I've got more downstairs. I think that's beautiful. I mean, that's a beautiful part of it, right? And so I think embracing that part of it in the talk, and then the other thing that's the overwhelming piece for me right now, which is exciting, and where I would love for us to have a part 2 if you're into it, is, boy, that's a lot of pruning, and for 17 minutes. I'm gonna have to kill a lot of babies.
Yeah.
And that's so that's the other thing, is that as we've grounded this in my story and a story, a relatable story. And then we're going to create a physical experience around those stories. I think it's going to rock.
And then get to the close. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, honestly, there's no more pieces that you can put in it, and you have to the whole TED Talk we've talked about it, because you only have room really for the opening with your story, with the box, explaining what the box was, explaining possibly how you could use this in an everyday story, and then closing. 17 minutes.
Like that.
Like nothing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
So fast, Marc.
So fast.
I was thinking about your line from your speech.
Yes,
so fast.
Yes. Jimbo, this has been absolutely amazing. I want to go to one of these workshops. I want to put a box on my head.
Yes, you do.
I want to find out how I can do that and meet up with you and do that. For anybody who also wants to put a box on their head so they can untrap the thinking that's going on inside their head so that they can change, capital T, their world. How do they find out more about you and more about this process?
Well, the easy way to link in with me is with my name, because Jimbo Clark, there's only one on LinkedIn with the box on his head. So, LinkedIn is always going to be the easiest. And then you can go to box.innogreat, INNOGREAT.com, or whatisyourbox.com. Those are both ways to kind of explore the box. And then Mark, you and I, let's figure it out. I'll be in America in February. Come to Orlando, come to Seattle.
Mark's in Florida sometimes, so yeah.
Oh, there you go. So we'll make that happen. We'll make that happen.
Okay. All right.
Definitely need to do it, Mark. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, you know, everybody's definitely got to look out for a part 2 with Jimbo.
Yes.
Most definitely. Everybody's got to look forward to taking the box and putting it on their head so that they can think outside of the box. And everybody's got to think about somebody they know, including themselves, who might want to join Cathey and I, because there's only one Marc and Cathey tandem, right? There's only one way you can do it. It's about to go down like this. So if you have an idea or you know somebody who's got an idea, hit Cathey and I up on It's About to Go Down show at our website. As Cathey always says, Cathey with an E, Marc with a C. It's About to Go Down is always here. Thank you so much for always sticking with us and having these awesome idea conversations. And we look forward to talking to you next time on It's About to Go Down.